Sunday, February 12th.
You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm.
Another major winter storm is expected to track across the Midwest this week for the 5th consecutive week. This week, finally, we have the third major ingredient that's going to be coming together to produce this storm. That's Arctic air. That's happening the Wednesday night into Thursday storm across the Midwest. Northern Minnesota will be getting their version of a southern stream storm colliding with Arctic air or cold air on around Tuesday night into Wednesday, but that's only for northern Minnesota. The precipitation over there will be starting off as rain, changing over to snow, potential of 6 inches or more. The Wednesday night into Thursday snow will be covering a much larger area. That one has the actual 3 ingredients: copious amounts of Gulf moisture and the Arctic air, along with deep low pressure. Major low pressure, Arctic air, and copious amounts of Gulf moisture, they collide together over the Midwest. When the 3 come together, we have a major winter storm, which is defined by the National Weather Service as 6 inches or more of a heavy snowfall taking place within a 12-hour period at least or more. We were able to pull this off with limited Arctic air and in some cases no Arctic air. This week we have 2 storm systems coming. Both are once again southern stream storms. The southern stream storms, those are the ones with all of the Gulf moisture. The first southern stream storm has copious amounts of Gulf moisture. It happens to be, as the St. Louis National Weather Service has pointed out, there's slightly less moisture than what would have been due to a slow-moving front on the Gulf Coast, which is preventing the moisture from reaching the storm in the beginning. However, there is a flow, as the Amarillo, Texas, or Oklahoma National Weather Service has pointed out. We have a flow of moist air coming in off the Pacific Ocean, which will be affecting Oklahoma, and the surge of Gulf air will quickly ramp up again once that front moves out. So we have a little, it's not turning on right away. That Gulf of Mexico moist machine, whatever you want to call it, although it's not turning on right away, there will be copious amounts of Gulf moisture nonetheless feeding into this low pressure system, which might be taking more of a Colorado low type of a track, but it has the amount of Gulf moisture associated with something like a panhandle hook would have. This system is expected to bring, we have system number 1, and system number 1 is going to have a difficult time colliding with cold air. It's actually not going to collide with cold air until you head into northern Minnesota, and that's going to start to happen Tuesday night. Even places in northern Minnesota are going to see the precipitation start off as rain with this one. The end will end as snow. So for those locations, we have the potential for a major winter storm. Those 3 ingredients come together. We could see a 6-inch snow or more. Realize, however, that the first half of the system is likely going to be falling as rain that could eat into the snow totals, that will eat into the snow totals. Nonetheless, a 6-inch snowfall can be expected over some portion. A 6-inch plus snowfall can be expected. It's going to be a wet snow, can be expected over portions of Minnesota. I'm hesitant to say 6 to 12 because there's going to be a delayed reaction. It's going to be delayed. The Arctic air is not going to come in until later, but 6 inches, it's certainly possible that some areas could get more than 6 inches in that part of Minnesota. We have seen here in the Midwest, even when the Arctic air comes in and it joins in the middle, these storms still tend to pull off 6 inches. So I do think there'll be areas in northern Minnesota that will be getting 6 inches, despite the fact the precipitation will be starting off as rain. The colder air comes in at the backside of the storm, and we will be able to get 6 inches of snow. And then that includes the Wisconsin area as well. This is especially true for places which will be getting lake effect snow immediately following the main snow. Now we go on and we discuss system number 2. System number 2, system number 1, back to system number 1 for just a second. Notice that what's bringing the snow is cold air on the backside. That's how it usually is in most winters. We haven't had that this winter, and that cold air is not going to be making it too far south. It's staying up north, and it isn't even going to be that cold, but it's there, and the precipitation will be falling as snow for portions. You have to go all the way up there to northern Minnesota before you get this. That system's going to be bringing in unseasonably warm and humid air into the rest of the Midwest. Record warmth is expected. Record warmth is already occurring in portions even up north in Wisconsin, and you have highs in the mid-40s. Wild Rose, Wisconsin, for that area, 46 and 48 degrees. That's already record warmth for Wild Rose, Wisconsin. Oshkosh, Wisconsin is in a similar boat in regards to that. Mid and upper 40s. That's already record warmth for those areas, and that stuff is occurring. The sunshine right now, we're already reaching, the solar insolation is high enough right now where we are actually getting warmth from the sun. Things are warming up, not just because of south winds. If you just leave the situation as is, you leave the sunshine out. Ultraviolet index is at a 4 here in the Chicago area already. Much, much stronger sun than December. Much stronger sun. December, we rely upon the south winds very much. This time of the year, even without the south winds, we have tomorrow places in southern Missouri. There might be areas that might be borderline cold front or places in the Nebraska, but because the sun will be out, temperatures still might be able to make it as warm as southern counties. That was true in some of the cities, someplace in the Midwest, western portions of the Midwest. But the point is that the sun does have strength this time of the year. Okay, now we go on to system number 2. System number 2 has some similarities to last week's storm system, but there are some differences. First of all, as of now, it's not going to have a negative tilt. So the system is not going to have the ability, as of now, to pull in wraparound moisture at the end. In fact, it might even be pulling in drier air. There could be some questionable, more dry slotting with the second system than what we would ordinarily have to work with, and that's something which the Omaha, Nebraska, or the Kansas City, Missouri National Weather Service has pointed out. But to keep things simple, here's the story with system number 2. System number 2. We have several inches of snow coming into Oklahoma. There's solid Arctic air for real coming in, a strong cold front on the backside. Arctic air is coming in. It's a short shot of Arctic air, brief shot, but it's solid Arctic air. Temperatures dropping into the single digits and teens, even in southern locations. Oklahoma, Amarillo, Texas. We have wind chills going down to 10 below zero in some of those locations. The rain will be changing over to snow. Snowfall amounts of several inches in that location. We also have copious amounts of Gulf moisture. Now, we could focus on the computer models and we're going to go nuts because the computer models are all over the place with the moisture return. Just realize the following. Realize that if you stay away from the models, what you have is the moisture return for storm system number 1, we mentioned, has a shortcoming to it, and that's because of the slow-moving front that didn't clear the Gulf until later. The St. Louis National Weather Service has pointed that out, and therefore system number 2 would have more moisture available to work with. We have dew points in the 60s expected all the way up into the states of Illinois, Indiana, Missouri. We have lots of moist air with system number 2. If you look at the models, you're going to go back and forth, back and forth. Forget the models. System number 2, more moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. The Arctic air is solid Arctic air. And in regards to the barometric pressure, we have a deepening a rapidly intensifying area of low pressure. At least that's the way it is from the perspective of meteorologists who are in the western portions of the Midwest. When you head over to the eastern portions of the Midwest, there's a different take on the low pressure system, but here's the thing. The low pressure, it's likely going to be going it's fair to say it's going to be going at least a little bit further south than the first one. We've had numerous meteorologists, National Weather Service, that have pointed out that for the most part, actually, the second low pressure system will be taking the same track as the first because it's relying upon the lower barometric pressure isobars of the first for its storm track. However, we know from the past that Arctic air masses tend to push storms further to the south. So this storm track is likely going to be a little bit further south. That's going to take the storm possibly through St. Louis, through Chicago, which would give us a similar storm track to what we had last week on Thursday. That would mean the wintry precipitation, the heaviest snow, which again, when you have these three ingredients that come together, you get a major winter storm of 6 inches or more here in the Midwest. The classic storms here in the Midwest, 6 to 12 inches in the bullseye. That's what you could expect, really, with both storms. At the end of the day, you're going to end up seeing at the last minute somehow storm number one, despite the fact the beginning will be falling as rain, there will be areas that will get well over 6 inches. You're going to have at least areas that are going to get more than 6 inches. By system number two, where you really do have those three ingredients, granted, we don't have the negative tilt, but this past winter, we've been seeing with the negative tilt storms a lot more than 6 to 12 inches. So, 6 to 12 inches in the bullseye for system number two. Both of these are major winter storms. They're southern stream storms. Both of them are colliding with Arctic air. The thing to point out in regards to system number two is an interesting thing that has taken place that is showing up in the models for North Platte, Nebraska, areas around there. A 1 to 4 inch area of snow, which is its relationship to the southern stream storm is a little bit complex. That snow is actually going to happen before the storm system from the south gets there. And in fact, the snow associated with the southern stream storm is not going to make it to Nebraska. That 1 to 4 inches, that light snowfall, will be the snow associated with the storm. The heavy snow, which is directly connected to the storm, stays further to the southeast from North Platte. It goes around the Kansas City area, Omaha, Nebraska, probably Des Moines, Iowa. Chicago, Illinois can go either way. If you stay away from the models, there's good reason to believe that Chicago, Illinois will be getting in on the accumulating snow. As of now, if you really want to go according to the models, both the European model and the GFS model has the Chicago area actually escaping both significant impacts from this storm. On the south side of the storm, we have a severe weather risk where severe storms might even make it into the St. Louis area Thursday morning. That's how far north the severe weather is going to be going, kind of similar to what happened last Thursday. We have high wind watches, which are in effect for storm number one in the beginning in the western portions of the Midwest. The stronger winds will be seen by system number two for the eastern portions of the Midwest. We have the flooding rains and the severe weather is something that's taking place on the southeast side of the storm. The heavy snow is taking place on the northwest side of the storm. If you follow the models right now, both of them place Chicago in neither one. Chicago is right in between. We escape both. So, we've said in the past, when you have both global models forecasting something, we've tried to apply this for the 10-day forecast, but that may not necessarily be true. Right now, we're holding at a time period when the European model tends to be the most accurate. We're 3 to 5 days out. The medium range forecast, this storm is on Thursday, so it's very reasonable to take the European approach. However, the St. Louis National Weather Service has pointed out, in general, there's less confidence there's unusually low confidence. There's less confidence than usual in the phasing of the system when the whole collision of the Arctic air with the Gulf moisture, the whole thing, there is less confidence than usual for whatever reason. And actually, the Des Moines, Iowa National Weather Service pointed out that yesterday there was consistency within models, and they're actually saying now there isn't. There is no consistency. Perhaps for the Chicago area, there's consistency in keeping the Chicago area out of both significant events. But in general, the storms no longer have that consistency. So let's stay away from the models and follow climatology. Climatology tells us you have these three ingredients. They come together: the Arctic air, copious amounts of Gulf moisture, and deep low pressure. You get a 6-inch plus snowstorm here in the Midwest. We have two of those systems coming through the Midwest this week. One of them doesn't collide with Arctic air until it hits northern Minnesota. So that heavier snow is going to be reserved for northern Minnesota. The second one collides with Arctic air right away. Forecasts call for just 2, 3, or 4 inches of snow right now for Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, but they could very well get more than that. Could easily turn into a 6-inch plus storm, and then we have to see the track that it takes as it moves through the Midwest. Arctic air comes in behind it. Next week, another active weather pattern continues. It's really amazing. This is week number 5 again, where we're going to have a major winter storm move across the Midwest. We pointed out 2 major winter storms, but really, because the first one is really going all the way up north, we're just going to say there's one storm, one area of heavy snow, 6-inch plus. It's going to move across the Midwest this week. And we have at least one more for next week, possibly another one at the end of the week. So there's one other thing that's phenomenal, spectacular, that's going on this week, which was pointed out by the Washington Post. Computer models are forecasting temperatures in the stratosphere above the North Pole to rise 60 degrees around February 15th, right around Wednesday, sometime between Tuesday and Friday. Sometime between that, this was issued February 9th. If that should happen, that many times, 70% of the time, that leads to a displacement of the polar vortex, which in this case would be bringing bitterly cold air into Europe. And the effects it has on North America is less clear, but many times it will also bring bitterly cold air into North America. Usually in the Washington Post, it reports that these things happen, the domino effect. There's a domino effect, and it takes about 1 to 2 weeks before we actually feel its effects on the surface. However, in the past, I've noticed that it sometimes can be 3 or 4 weeks until we feel these effects. But the Washington Post reports 1 to 2 weeks. There's more confidence in Europe than North America. But that's something that could lead to a lot of excitement already by the middle. The excitement would be for Baltimore, Maryland, for the places on the East Coast, where we've seen no shortage at all of southern stream storms. That's not been the problem. We've had copious moisture, copious storms. Southern cities are breaking records this winter. The issue has been the Arctic air. Surprisingly, the Arctic air, which, although we had 2 phenomenally cold Arctic periods, in fact, Boston went from 10 below zero Saturday, February 4th, to a high of 51 degrees the very next day. We spoke about that. It actually happened. The high was 51. That itself is a record for the largest temperature rise within whatever period of time that was. Part of that probably had to do with the fact that there was no snow on the ground, which just makes the 10 degree below zero record even more amazing, that it happened without any snow on the ground, so minimal radiational cooling. The East Coast cities have a good chance of seeing some of these cities. All it takes is one storm to catch you up to normal. Baltimore on average only gets 19 point some inches of snow a year. So you get one nor'easter, you're already up at normal. So it doesn't take much with these nor'easters, you get one or two of them, you're already up to normal for all of these East Coast cities. March, you get one or two nor'east storms. You have this it's called an SSW, a sudden stratosphere warming. It's expected to take place this week. More information will be known about it after it happens. There will be more knowledge about what its effects will be here in the U.S. The last time we had something this significant that happened was in 2021. It's been 2 years since a stratosphere warming of this significance has happened. It has not happened yet, but it's forecasted to happen. So we'll stay tuned to the exciting weather that's expected to continue, regardless of whether there's a sudden stratosphere warming or not. We have another storm on the week for next week. Enjoy, and I should have reiterated that there is a severe weather outbreak expected this week, possibly twice. You have been listening to the podcast Weather with Enthusiasm. This trailer was updated at the very end of January 2023. We have two things going on. We have evaporative cooling and we also have dynamic cooling, and the two are coming together to produce a major snowstorm in the deep south. The only time you could blame cold air on climate change is when it's a result of the stratosphere warming, which is what causes all the Arctic air to come down south. The way to get a 6-inch snowstorm here in the Midwest and in the Southern Plains has always been you need 3 ingredients. It's hard to believe the numbers that are being forecasted. Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning. Yes! Hey, we have a special guest on our show. What is your name?
Kitabis.
27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my God.
That's a time of celebration. Just Google Weather with Enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.